You want to ask for exactly this and see reality bend to your will. So listen carefully and without delicacy. The world doesn't respond to your desire, it responds to your state. Desire is smoke when you treat it as a distant thing. State is fire when you inhabit it as your identity. Most people speak as if knocking on the door of a fortress, asking for permission. I tell you, stop knocking, enter. Life is not a judge deciding if you deserve something. It's a mirror reflecting what you hold within. And no mirror argues, it just reflects. Notice the common confusion. People want to ask as if asking were a well-constructed phrase, a combination of words that unlocks a secret door. They cling to slogans like someone holding a winning lottery ticket, but internally they continue to live as if they've already lost. And then they get frustrated when the outside doesn't obey. Do you think the mirror will smile if you're grimacing on the inside? Do you think the screen will show a different movie if the reel you insert is always the same? Your true request isn't what you say, it's the place from which you speak. Now I will guide you through 5 principles, and they are not poetry. They are instructions. You don't need to believe in them as one believes in a myth. You need to test them as one tests a tool. When you choose a state with firmness and sustain that state, the outside reorganizes because it is an effect. What seems mysterious is just how the effect finds its ways without asking for your opinion. The first principle is this, and it separates those who play around from those who command. Ask from the end, not from lack. The end is the completed state, the final scene, the accomplished fact in your consciousness. Lack is the means, the path, the how, the when, the anxious counting of days. Those who ask from lack are watching the clock and calling it faith. Those who ask from the end are already seated in the chair of the outcome. Imagine a photographer trying to capture a face, but with a trembling hand. He blames the camera, blames the light, blames the world, blames bad luck. But the problem isn't the camera, it's the tremor. The tremor is your state. You can change the equipment, change the angle, change the location, but as long as you tremble internally, the image will be distorted. Asking from the end means one practical thing. You choose a single internal sign that it is already real and feel it as normal. It's not euphoria, it's not theatrics, it's not an effort of positivity, it's normalcy. Normalcy is powerful because it doesn't need to convince anyone. If you want prosperity, don't look for miracles in your bank statement like someone hunting for crumbs of hope. Look for the silence of security, the way you go through the day without that weight on your chest, the way you solve a problem without panicking. If you want love, don't look for messages on your phone like someone gasping for air. Look for the relaxation of being chosen, the feeling of belonging that doesn't depend on proof. If you want freedom, don't look for external permission. Look for the feeling that your life is already under your command. And here is the point few accept. The world will offer you old evidence, as if trying to pull you back to the past by your shirt. It will provoke you with delays, with silences, with contradictions. Great. This is part of the process because external reality is like a tide. It takes time to obey when the internal moon has changed. The tide doesn't decide, it follows. So when life presents you with the old version of your movie, you don't react like someone betrayed. You react like someone recognizing a rerun and knowing that a rerun isn't destiny. It's a delay. Your job isn't to argue with the screen, it's to keep the end firm. When you ask from the end, you also stop carrying the request as a burden. A heavy request arises from the idea that there's a barrier between you and the outcome. Then you feel effort, and effort becomes an internal message that it hasn't arrived yet. The end is light because it's already resolved. The proof that you've understood this is simple. You can imagine the result and, instead of feeling excited, you become still. You become serene. You have that of course feeling. If it's not like that, you're still asking from lack, asking from the middle, asking as someone who tries and not as someone who already is, and you need to return to the end until it feels natural. Some people try to use imagination like a flashlight to hunt for a way out in the dark. I tell you, use it like the sun, not a flashlight. The flashlight searches, the sun illuminates. The flashlight points to lack. The sun affirms presence. Therefore, when you close your eyes to feel the end, don't do it like someone trying to feel something rare. Do it like someone remembering. You don't search for the memory, you access it. And when you access it, you don't ask if it's real. You feel it's yours. And here comes the hidden discipline. The moment you choose the end, you're also choosing what you will ignore. You cannot hold the image of your destiny and at the same time keep feeding the drama of obstacles. Obstacle is noise. The end is the signal. Your job isn't to overcome the noise, it's to maintain the signal. Now, before I lead you to the second principle, I want to give you something that accelerates your discipline and prevents you from getting lost in your own enthusiasm. In the pinned comment, there is direct and practical material for you to truly apply this. Guided imagination exercises, simple ways to maintain focus without burnout, a practice roadmap so you don't depend on willpower, and guidelines to transform this chosen state into a daily habit. If you want to stop just understanding and start living, use this material as your track. It helps you turn what you are hearing into daily practice, and daily practice becomes conscious repetition, and conscious repetition becomes visible reality. The second principle is this: ask with identity, not with hope. Hope is an elegant distance. Identity is absolute proximity. You are not trying to convince the universe, you are choosing who you are, and who you are organizes what happens. What destroys people isn't the absence of what they desire, it's the habit of defining themselves by absence. They say, when I have it, I will be. I tell you, be, and then you will have. Not as a trick, but as a natural order. You don't put on a uniform after getting the position. You wear the uniform and start operating as someone who already holds it. Think of an old radio. You can yell at the device to play another song, you can beg, you can threaten, you can cry. The radio doesn't change because of your drama. It changes when you adjust the frequency. Identity is the frequency. The correct question isn't, how do I get it? The correct question is, who would I be if this were already a fact? If you answer, I would be confident, then embody that confidence now, in the way you walk, the way you speak, the way you choose. If you answer, I would be respected, then stop presenting yourself as someone asking for permission to exist. If you answer, I would be free, then start acting with the kind of decisions free people make. They stop explaining themselves, stop justifying themselves, stop begging for approval. Do you want money? Then stop defining yourself as someone always chasing, always putting out fires, always surviving. Define yourself as someone who manages energy, chooses priorities, negotiates calmly, refuses what doesn't serve them, learns to say no without guilt. Do you want recognition? Stop defining yourself as invisible. Assume the weight of your presence. Your voice doesn't need to apologize for existing. Do you want peace? Stop defining yourself as someone who still can't achieve it. Define yourself as someone who has already decided and remains firm. Identity also has a scent, in a symbolic sense. There's an internal odor of someone who feels small, who feels persecuted, who feels behind. And there's an internal odor of someone who is aligned, who is whole, who is in control. You change this odor by changing your internal dialogue and your posture. And don't underestimate posture. Posture is body language, and the body believes what it expresses repeatedly. Want a test? Sit now as someone who has already received the news they wanted. Let your chest be looser, your breathing deeper, your face calmer, like someone on safe ground. When you step into the right identity, you also change what you tolerate. You stop accepting crumbs, stop accepting disrespect as normal, stop accepting delays as destiny. And this change, even silent, is like changing the sign on your house. People and opportunities that used to treat you one way simply no longer fit. They move away. Others emerge. Life makes this adjustment without ceremony. What seems like bad luck or good luck is just compatibility of state. So every time you make a request, don't start with the request itself. Start with an internal declaration. I am the kind of person for whom this is natural. This phrase isn't magic, it's direction. And direction, when sustained, becomes destiny. The third principle arises as a consequence and requires courage. Ask without watching the door. Watching the door is living by checking if it has arrived, as if reality were a late delivery person. Vigilance is a sign of fear, and fear, when persistent, becomes a state. There are people who say, I trust, but spend the entire day looking for signs, hunting for numbers. interrogating silence, opening and closing the same internal drawer, as if they'll find proof there to calm their heart for 5 minutes. They call it care, I call it a prison. I'll give you a simple example. A farmer plants a seed and then digs it up every day to see if it has germinated. He calls it care, but it's disguised impatience. The soil doesn't work under constant inspection. Neither does imagination. There's a difference between attention and vigilance. Attention is choosing the state and returning to it when you get distracted. Vigilance is doubting the state and seeking proof. Attention nourishes. Vigilance drains. And everything that drains you pushes you back to your old self, because the old self is familiar, and the familiar seems safe, even when it destroys you. Watching the door also appears in subtle ways. The person says they aren't checking, but talks to everyone about the matter, asks for opinions, asks for predictions, asks for confirmation, asks for a sign. That's watching under another name. The true state doesn't need a witness. It needs permanence. Want a practical rule? Choose a short period during which you won't look for any proof. It could be a day, it could be 12 hours. During this period, whenever your mind tries to open the door to check, you close the door from within and return to your final scene for a few seconds, until your body relaxes again. And when anxiety arises, saying, "But what if it doesn't happen?" So you respond like someone who knows the difference between an echo and a voice. You say, "This is just an echo of the old state. I don't act on echoes, I act on decision." And then you do something simple in the external world that aligns with the end, even if it's organizing a detail, adjusting a plan, responding firmly, taking care of what is already yours, not to make it happen, but to maintain coherence. Coherence is the language the world understands. When you stop watching, you regain energy. Regained energy turns into presence. Presence changes everything, because presence is what makes life notice you. Many ask for prosperity, but live absent, always in their heads, always in fear, always in tomorrow. The state is now, and now is your throne. The fourth principle is more subtle, and therefore few master it. Ask with sensory precision, not with generalities. Generality creates fantasy. Precision creates experience. Experience creates naturalness. You don't sustain a vague idea for long. It escapes. But you sustain a concrete sensation. Don't make hollow declarations like, "I want to be rich," if within that there is panic, guilt, and confusion. Transform it into a small, specific scene. You're on a normal morning in a normal place, and you notice a detail that says it all. It could be the tranquility of paying for something without financial strain. It could be opening a message and reading a confirmation. It could be signing something with a steady hand. It could be looking at the day and realizing that you choose and are not pushed. The mind works like an oven. It bakes what you put inside repeatedly. If you put in images of urgency, it bakes urgency and delivers urgent days to you. If you put in images of tranquility, it bakes tranquility and delivers peaceful encounters to you. If you put in scenes of silent victory, it bakes silent victory. The secret isn't to put an image in once. It's to put the same image in until it warms your body like a memory, not an invention. Sensory precision isn't just imagery, it's atmosphere, it's internal temperature, it's the texture of life. Therefore, when you choose your scene, ask, what is the detail that makes this undeniable for me? Perhaps it's the weight of a key in your hand representing an achievement. Perhaps it's the sound of a thank you said with respect. Perhaps it's the feeling of laying your head on the pillow and sleeping without that chain of worry. Perhaps it's opening your calendar and noticing free spaces because your life organizes itself naturally and you feel in command of your time. And learn to read the symbols of your day. The world shows you signs not to tell you the future, but to reveal the state you are currently emitting. If you lose things, if you're late, if everything seems to get stuck, don't treat it as a curse. Treat it as a state alarm. You don't fix the world, you adjust the source. You return to the final scene, you recover the internal atmosphere. And then the day, which once seemed full of obstacles, begins to open pathways. The practice doesn't need to be long, it needs to be faithful. Better 2 minutes of a well-chosen image with a relaxed body and a firm mind than 20 minutes of mental struggle. The struggle is already a sign that you are in the middle. Return to the end and let the struggle die from lack of nourishment. The fifth principle closes the cycle and is the most decisive. Ask with discipline of internal language, not with random promises. Internal language is what you say to yourself when something goes wrong, when someone ignores you, when a payment is delayed, when a plan fails, when your body tires, when the world doesn't applaud. Most people practice the old state exactly in these moments. They say, "I knew it. It always happens to me. It won't work. It wasn't meant for me." And then they try to create a new reality with the same poison in their internal mouth. When something contradicts your end, you don't humble yourself before the fact. You put the fact in the place of effect. You say with calm firmness, "This is just an echo of what I've already abandoned." And then you return to the state. It's not denying life. It's denying the moment's authority over your identity. The world is a delayed report. You are the present decision, and the present always wins when sustained. Discipline of internal language also means choosing your return words. You don't need to invent speeches. You need a short key that brings you back to the state when your mind slips. It could be, "I remain at the end." It could be, "I live the resolved version." It could be, "This is already my state." Use the same key whenever there's noise. Repetition creates a track, and a track prevents you from falling into the old hole. Observe where you most betray your decision. At the first bad news, the first criticism, the first silence, the first delay. That is your training ground. If you manage to stay at the end precisely when the world provokes you, you become dangerous to your past, because the past thrives on reaction. Without reaction, it loses strength. And with the past losing strength, the future you chose gains space to be born. Don't confuse discipline with rigidity. Discipline is firmness without violence. You don't punish yourself for getting distracted, you return. You don't accuse yourself for feeling fear, you acknowledge and return. You don't despair for stumbling, you adjust and return. Returning is the secret. And the more you return, the faster you return, until one day you realize that the new state has become home. Discipline is returning 1,000 times if necessary, without drama. You are not a victim trying to escape. You are an author editing. Each time you return, you strengthen the new path. In the beginning, it seems artificial. Then it seems possible. Then it seems obvious. And when it becomes obvious, the world cannot continue showing the opposite without breaking its own coherence. It yields. It rearranges people. It changes invitations. It alters coincidences. It opens doors you didn't even know existed, not because someone favored you, but because you stopped contradicting yourself. This is where you understand the phrase that so many repeat without comprehending. The universe has no choice. It has no choice because you stopped choosing the opposite. You stopped asking with your mouth and denying with your body. You stopped declaring with enthusiasm and living with fear. You stopped calling anxiety caring. You stopped calling doubt realism. Realism for most is just loyalty to the past. I don't teach you loyalty to the past, I teach you fidelity to the end. Now, to seal this in your understanding, receive one last image. Imagine you are holding a rudder on a boat in the open sea. You choose a point on the horizon. The sea has waves, wind, current. If you turn the rudder with every wave, you won't arrive. If you change your destination because the wind opposed you, you won't arrive. The captain doesn't argue with the wind. He adjusts and maintains course. Your imagination is the rudder. Your identity is the destination. Circumstances are the wind. You don't control the wind, but you control the course. And if you're thinking, "But I've tried before and it didn't work," I say, you tried as a visitor, not as a resident. A visitor looks at the clock, compares, hesitates, and leaves. A resident tidies the house and lives there even when it's still under renovation. The new state is a house under renovation at first. There's dust, there's noise, there are things out of place. But if you don't abandon the house, it will be completed. The renovation is the interval in which the world is still adjusting the pieces to the new internal command. I want you to understand the weight of what I've just given you. It's not about getting one thing, it's about changing the place from which you live. When you change that place, things that seemed impossible become consequences. And consequences don't ask for permission, so do this now in the silence of your own chest. Choose a clear end. Put on the corresponding identity. Close the door of vigilance. Give precision to your scene. Discipline your internal language like a guardian. and above all, be consistent. Consistency is a sword. It's not the brilliance of one day, it's the permanence of many. From now on, stop begging for external changes. Stop negotiating with circumstances as if they were kings. They are shadows, and a shadow changes when the light changes. Command, in silence and certainty, that your reality obey the state you have chosen to inhabit. If someone tells you you're dreaming, you don't explain. If the world delays, you don't beg. If fear comes, you don't bend. You return to the end. You return to the identity. You return to your internal command, and you remain there until the outside aligns, because it always aligns with the sustained state. And to consolidate this with method and not depend on your mood, return to the pinned comment and use the material indicated there as your next step. It exists to transform this understanding into practice, to guide you with exercises and structure, to help you sustain the right state on good days and difficult days, until the outside has no alternative but to follow. Now go. Don't ask with desperation. Assume with certainty, and let the world learn through your firmness who you have decided to be. You lack has already begun to move towards you, and all the universe awaits is for you to recognize the call has arrived and the moment is now. Money is not attracted by those who desire it, but by those who assume it. To desire is to declare absence. It is to tell the universe, I don't have it yet. To assume is to affirm presence. This is already mine. And this difference, though subtle to the logical mind, is abysmal for the creative consciousness. When you desire, you are vibrating in lack. When you assume, you are vibrating in possession. The world does not respond to your words, but to the internal state you silently hold. That is why so many pray and few receive, because their words ask, but their emotions deny. They hold the desire but live in scarcity. Everything begins when a person understands that money is not an external force, but an expression of their own consciousness. It is not work that creates wealth, it is the inner state that work reflects. A poor person can work tirelessly and remain with nothing, because their mind is still programmed for survival, not for abundance. But when they change what they believe themselves to be, the same work, the same talent, the same amount of time begin to yield previously unthinkable fruits. The cause was never in the conditions, but in the identity. The one who keeps saying, I need money, is perpetuating the cycle of need. They are continually creating more situations that make them need. The universe is a perfect mirror. It does not distinguish plea from certainty. It merely reflects the state you hold. That is why true change does not occur when you get something, but when you stop seeing yourself as someone who doesn't have. Money begins to approach when you stop seeking it and start to be the one who already possesses it. This is the law the world ignores. The invisible precedes the visible. Nothing appears in the material world without first having been assumed within consciousness. The common person thinks money brings security. The awakened one knows it is inner security that brings money. When you begin to feel prosperous, even without external evidence, something changes in the vibration. It is as if an old frequency dissolves and a new harmony begins to command circumstances. People, opportunities, and ideas begin to emerge as if the universe were conspiring, but it doesn't conspire, it simply obeys. The first step, therefore, is not to chase money, but to change who you are in relation to it. The mind must move before matter bends. Close your eyes and affirm with silent conviction, I am manifested prosperity. Money serves me, and I do not serve it. Feel the weight of this truth within your chest. Walk, speak, and think from this state as one who has already received. And then you will observe the inevitable. The outer world will begin to translate your new belief into facts, because nothing resists a consciousness that assumes command. Remember, to desire is to beg, to assume is to command. Money does not come to those who ask, it comes to those who are. And at this very moment, as you hear these words, you are being invited to shed the identity of lack and don the identity of abundance. The universe is listening to your state, not your words. Decide now what you want it to echo, and it will do so faithfully, as it always has. The world around you is merely a mirror of what dwells in your mind. Nothing you see originates outside of you. Everything that happens to you is a response, a reflection, a consequence of an inner state you chose, consciously or not. Money, scarcity, opportunities, or the lack thereof are merely material translations of a belief that silently rests within your being. As long as you try to change the reflection without changing the original image, you will be fighting against the wind. You can work harder, study more, exert more effort, but the reflection will remain the same until you change what you project into the mirror of life. The slumbering person blames the world for their condition, while the awakened one observes it as if reading a book they themselves wrote. When you understand that nothing out there has independent power, fear loses its grip. Your boss, the government, the market, all become characters acting according to the script your consciousness holds. If you believe in lack, they become instruments of loss. If you believe in abundance, they become channels of provision. It is always your belief that commands the scene, and the world obediently merely plays the role assigned to it. The human mind has grown accustomed to reacting to the visible, forgetting that the visible is merely condensed past. Everything you perceive today is the result of a previous state. If you live complaining about what you have, you are perpetuating the old cycle. But if you dare to give thanks and affirm the new image, the reflection begins to change. Slowly at first, until the old completely dissolves. Just as the mirror cannot show you smiling while you cried, the world cannot show abundance while your consciousness holds scarcity. The secret lies in reversing your gaze. Do not ask, why is the world like this, but what in me is projecting it? The answer will not come as guilt, but as liberation, because the moment you assume yourself to be the creator of the reflection, you gain the power to change it. The poor person who sees themselves as a victim of fate remains a prisoner of the old image. The one who awakens and sees themselves as the source begins to mold the mirror to their will. Reality is not solid. It is malleable like clay before the potter, and you are the potter. Therefore, if there is scarcity around you, do not fight against it. Recognize it as a reflection of what you have held and change what you carry within. The mind that purifies itself of complaint and takes command transforms everything around it. In silence, change the image. And when the reflection finally adjusts, you will perceive the power that has always been with you, the power to command the mirror of life, to faithfully reveal the new image of your consciousness. The common mind gives up when it sees no results, but the conscious creator understands that time is not an enemy. It is merely the necessary interval for the invisible to become visible. Inner persistence is the true test of faith. Not the faith that asks for signs, but the one that remains firm when everything seems otherwise, because the world is slow to react, but it always reacts. With every thought of doubt, with every moment you yield to appearance, you interrupt the process that was already underway. But when you remain firm even without evidence, you are telling the universe, I know who I am and nothing can convince me otherwise. This is the language the invisible understands. Holding the desired state is like keeping a flame lit in the wind. It requires vigilance, attention, and constancy. In the beginning, everything within you will try to sabotage the new state. The old mind will whisper, nothing has changed, look around you. And if you believe it, you return to the old cycle. But if you hold firm and reply in silence, this is already mine, you will be educating the invisible. The universe does not bow to haste, it bows to conviction. Many think faith is emotion. It is not. Faith is inner stability. It is not being moved by appearances. When the world shows absence, faith smiles and says, I have already received. When the balance is low, faith responds, the money is coming. When doors seem closed, faith walks as if they were already open. It is this silent certainty that moves mountains, that transforms the invisible into matter, that makes inevitable what has already been assumed. The secret is not to fight against what you see, but to refuse to give reality to what contradicts your inner vision. You may be surrounded by evidence of scarcity, but if your consciousness is fixed on abundance, the world will sooner or later bow. Life has no choice but to obey the mind that knows what it is. It is at this point that many give up, for they confuse delay with denial. But delay is merely the reflection still adjusting to the new image. Remain in the desired state until it becomes natural. Do not treat it as an exercise, but as an identity. The one who tries to maintain a state still sees themselves as separate from it. The one who embodies it no longer needs to try. They are. And when the being consolidates, the world has no power whatsoever to resist. Everything that was an obstacle dissolves. Everything that was a delay accelerates. Because the universe is faithful to the command of consciousness. Thus, learn the art of inner persistence. Learn to remain firm when nothing seems to work. Learn to walk with the certainty of one who has already arrived, even when you are still on the way. Because the one who perseveres is not tested by time, they are shaped by eternity. And when the reflection finally bows, the Creator smiles, not in surprise, but in recognition. They always knew it would be this way. The limited person seeks to control the path. They want to understand how, when, and through whom money will arrive. And it is precisely in this desire for control that they block the flow. The universe does not need your logic, it needs your trust. When you cling to the form, you impede the power from acting. But when you let go, the invisible begins to move pieces that your mind could never align. Divine providence is not revealed to curiosity, but to surrender. Understand that the how is God's domain. Your role is simply to define the state and remain in it with unwavering faith. As long as you ask, how will this happen? You are confessing doubt. But when you say, this has already happened within me, you open the doors for the universe to surprise you. It is at this moment that coincidences begin to multiply. People appear, opportunities reveal themselves, ideas emerge from nowhere. The invisible is not silence, it is movement. However, this movement is invisible until you allow it to manifest. The mind that trusts rests, and rest is not passivity, it is mastery. It is knowing that there is a higher order guiding every detail. When you worry, you interrupt the flow. When you trust, it accelerates. It is like a river. Try to hold it back and the water becomes turbulent. Allow it to run, and it flows naturally to its destination. So it is with money, with love, with any manifestation. Everything you resist moves away, everything you release returns multiplied. The secret lies in acting as one who already possesses. The person who lives in a state of abundance does not despair, does not force, does not demand. They know that the invisible has already answered their request the moment they assumed it. They walk with lightness, speak with confidence, and observe events as confirmations, not as tests. Every sign, however small, is an echo of what has already been decreed internally. Free yourself from the anxiety of understanding. Intellect is blind before the wisdom of the Spirit. Do not try to decipher the process. Trust it. There is an intelligence that guides you through perfect paths, even when they seem strange or contrary to your expectation. Sometimes, a door that closes is just the necessary detour for greater abundance. Learn to see every apparent obstacle as part of the invisible order working in your favor. The how is not your concern. It is the property of the law. And this law is exact, precise, infallible. The moment you assume the state of possession, the universe begins to reorganize around your new vibration. And there is no force that can prevent what has already been accepted in consciousness. Therefore, rest. Release fear. Let the invisible run its course. Because the path you cannot see is often the shortest to the miracle. Gratitude is the seal of fulfilled manifestation. It is not just a gesture of spiritual courtesy, it is the silent recognition that the invisible has already become real. When you give thanks for something you do not yet see, you are declaring to the universe, "I have already received." And the universe, obedient to the vibration of your state, hurries to confirm what has been accepted. Gratitude is not a fleeting emotion, it is a posture of consciousness. It is the vibration of one who knows that everything has already been provided, even if the external world is still adjusting. Most people wait for something good to happen before giving thanks. But the true Creator does the opposite. They give thanks beforehand. They understand that the feeling of possession precedes physical possession. This is how the invisible condenses into matter. Gratitude is the language of the invisible realm, the sound the universe understands as a command. Every time you say thank you with conviction and serenity, you are affirming your union with the source. And this union dissolves all resistance, opening the way for financial, emotional, and spiritual flow to manifest in fullness. Give thanks not for what you expect, but for what already is. Give thanks for the house you don't yet have, as one who already lives in it. Give thanks for the money you don't yet see, as one who already feels it in their hands. Give thanks for tranquility, even when the world seems to crumble. Because true gratitude does not depend on circumstances, it creates them. It is faith clothed in emotion. It is the silent testimony that your consciousness has taken command. When you give thanks, you no longer need to ask. The request is the voice of lack. Thanksgiving is the voice of fulfillment. The universe listens to both and responds faithfully to each. Therefore, when you pray in despair, it echoes more despair. When you give thanks in certainty, it echoes abundance. There is no mystery, there is only response. Gratitude also purifies the heart of doubt and fear. You cannot feel gratitude and lack at the same time. One eliminates the other. When you begin to give thanks constantly, the mind starts to align with the state of one who already possesses. And in this alignment, external reality is compelled to transform. Paths open, the right people appear, opportunities multiply. Not because something new has emerged, but because your vibration has finally become compatible with what has always existed. Therefore, live in anticipatory gratitude. Speak in gratitude, think in gratitude, breathe gratitude. Wake up and give thanks, even without apparent reason. Sleep and give thanks, as one who celebrates a promise already fulfilled. And, in doing so, you will perceive something subtle and powerful. The world will begin to adjust to your new frequency. Money will flow, doors will open, and everything that once seemed distant will become inevitable. Because the one who gives thanks before seeing manifests before everyone else. Now you know what brought you here. This video is not a coincidence, it is a call. Every word was prepared to reach the exact point where your consciousness is ready to remember who you are. Everything you desired, everything you hoped for, everything you sought outside already exists within you. Money, prosperity, opportunities, none of this is coming from outside. They are emerging from the vibration you are now choosing to sustain. You were not created to beg for abundance, but to command it. And to command it is not to shout at the universe. It is to quiet yourself within and affirm with certainty, I am. When this I am becomes your dwelling, the world bows before your authority. Life begins to reorganize, doors open effortlessly, and the impossible becomes natural. Everything that once seemed distant begins to come to you with ease, as if it had always been there, waiting for you to recognize it. From now on, stop asking, stop waiting, assume it. Live as one who already possesses, feel as one who has already received, speak as one who has already won. The universe has no choice but to confirm your conviction. Reality is not a wall, it is a mirror, and it reflects exactly what you carry within. If you want to see abundance, be abundance. If you want to see movement, be movement. If you want to see miracles, be faith. Arise, child of light, and remember, you lack nothing. Everything you need is already vibrating within you, awaiting only your permission to reveal itself. Money is coming not as a promise, but as a natural consequence of the state you now choose to inhabit. Hold it with calm, with gratitude, and with certainty, because the entire universe listens to the one who assumes, and when you assume, the invisible bows. Everything already is, and everything belongs to you. Pause for a moment. Silence the noises coming from outside, and even more so, the turmoil coming from within. Because it is in this silence that truth reveals itself. Everything you've been taught about quantum manifestation may sound appealing, but most people have misunderstood it completely. They talk about energy, they talk about vibration, they talk about attracting what you want, but they continue to operate from a mind of fear, a mind that seeks to control, measure, demand, prove. And this mind never manifests anything because it doesn't create, it reacts. The error begins when the invisible is turned into a technique, the mystery into a ritual. People repeat phrases, perform visualizations, light mental candles for the universe, expecting something outside to reward them for their faith. But the universe is not a separate entity. It is an extension of your own state of consciousness. Everything that happens out there is merely the projected shadow of what you hold within. If there is scarcity in the world, it is because consciousness still vibrates with lack. If there is delay, it is because the inner self still doubts. This is why manifestation seems not to work. Because it wasn't made to function, it was made to reveal. It reveals what you truly believe yourself to be. When you say, I want, the field responds, you want. When you say, I have, the field responds, you have. The quantum field does not interpret words, it merely replicates frequencies. And what I see most are people trying to create prosperity from desperation, love from need, healing from the fear of pain. They think of light but feel darkness, and the universe responds to vibration, not intention. The truth is that the physical world is merely a theater, and consciousness is the playwright. Nothing you do with your hands changes the plot if the script within your mind remains the same. Manifestation fails because the actor wants to change the play without changing the character. They want wealth with a poor person's mindset. They want love with a wounded heart. They want freedom, but fear losing control. They want quantum results, but think in a linear fashion. Meanwhile, the universe awaits one single thing: coherence. That the inner self and external behavior speak the same language. That feeling and thought align, because when the I am becomes stable, the world bends. And when the world bends, humanity realizes it was never a victim. It was always a creator. Therefore, before attempting to manifest anything, remember, it's not about making it work. It's about remembering who you are. The power is not in the technique, but in the consciousness that sustains it. Quantum manifestation is not a magic trick you perform. It is the inevitable reflection of the state you inhabit. And when you truly understand this, there will be no more how to make it work, because what is true already is. The first error in quantum manifestation is believing that thought, by itself, holds power. This is one of the greatest spiritual illusions of our time. People strive to think positively, repeat phrases like mantras, collect affirmations, and try to convince the rational mind that something will change, but the heart continues to vibrate with fear, doubt, and absence. And that's where everything collapses. Thought is merely the surface of the ocean. True power lies in the depths, in the emotional and vibrational state that sustains that thought. You can say, I am prosperous 1,000 times, but if deep down you feel you are not, The universe will only hear the feeling. Because energy does not understand words, it understands frequencies. When someone thinks of wealth while vibrating poverty, they are emitting the energetic signature of lack. And the quantum field, which is perfect in its neutrality, returns exactly what was emitted. More situations that confirm the feeling of absence. This is why so many give up on manifestation. They think it didn't work, when in fact it worked perfectly, merely reflecting the inner state of scarcity that was sustained more strongly than the positive thought. The universe is not moved by what you want, but by what you accept as true about yourself. To think is an act of the mind, to feel is an act of the being, and creation comes from the being, not from mental effort. That's why imagining something without emotion is like trying to light the sun with a flashlight. Imagination needs to be clothed in feeling, with the living touch of inner reality. When you feel so intensely that something is already yours, the field doesn't distinguish if it's real or mental. It responds to the vibration as a fait accompli. True manifestation begins when thought and feeling become one. But most people still think like energetic beggars. They want to attract something because they believe they don't have it. They desire love because they feel lonely. They desire money because they fear scarcity. They desire healing because they believe they are sick. And desire, when born from lack, reinforces the very lack. It's like saying, I want to leave the desert, while reaffirming I am in the desert. Nothing changes until the state changes. Therefore, the secret is not to desire more strongly, but to accept yourself as different. Stop seeking and start assuming. True quantum manifestation happens when you exchange I want for I am. When you stop trying to think something and start feeling yourself as it. It's a silent yet profound movement. You no longer affirm what you desire, you embody the outcome. And at that instant, effortlessly, the vibration aligns with what is already rightfully yours. The physical world, which has always been slow, begins to rearrange its pieces, because the field obeys inner certainty as the tide obeys the moon. As long as you keep trying to think to convince the universe, it will continue to show you the reflection of doubt. But when you truly feel it, when your body, mind, and emotion are in unison with the conviction that it already is, the universe bends. And not out of blind obedience, but because you have become coherent with the law. It is at this point that thought ceases to be a request and transforms into a command. Because when the being assumes the vibration of what it wants, the quantum field responds with perfection. So be it. The second error in quantum manifestation is the obsession with time and results. Most people say they trust, but they are always looking at the universe's clock, impatient, trying to rush the invisible. They want to plant today and harvest tomorrow, and in doing so, without realizing it, they constantly affirm absence. Because every act of seeing if it worked is a declaration that it hasn't happened yet. And as long as this feeling of waiting exists, the quantum field continues to reflect exactly that. Waiting. Time, in the plan of manifestation, is not the same as clock time. Spiritual time is not measured in minutes or days. It is measured by the intensity of the inner state. A shift in consciousness can compress years of experience into a single moment of realization. But the human mind, conditioned to haste and control, doesn't understand this. It believes there's a linear sequence: first think, then wait, then receive, and that's why the process drags on. Because time is not outside. It is created within consciousness itself. Those who believe something is still missing create the time of lack. Those who feel they already have it dissolve time completely. Impatience is the disguise of doubt, and doubt is the poison of creation. It's like planting a seed and pulling it from the earth every hour to see if it has germinated. Many do this with their own manifestation. They observe, analyze, compare, question. Why hasn't it come yet? What am I doing wrong? When will it happen? And each question pushes the desired reality further away. The field responds to the vibration of certainty, not the vibration of anxiety. The correct approach is to rest in conviction, to know that the request has been heard, not because someone outside listened, but because consciousness has already assumed the state of the outcome. When this happens, time ceases to matter. You no longer wait for tomorrow, because you are already living the vibration of what you desire today. And this is what breaks the cycle of waiting. The universe can only deliver what you already feel you possess. Those who understand the law know that patience is not passivity, it is trust in motion. While the impatient observes the field, the trusting one inhabits the outcome. They do not ask when, because when is now. They do not ask for signs, because the greatest sign has already occurred within them, the change of state. When the mind rests and the heart is secure, time folds. Reality begins to adjust so naturally that it seems like coincidence, but it is not. It is a response. Quantum manifestation does not demand haste. It demands certainty. Time is only an obstacle for those who doubt the seed. When the inner state is stable, time becomes a servant, not a master, and everything that was distant begins to draw near, not by force, but by coherence. This is how the invisible becomes inevitable, not because you waited anxiously, but because you learned to rest in the truth. What is already yours does not need to be rushed, only recognized. The third error is separating the spiritual from the everyday, as if manifestation only happens during moments of meditation, reading, or silence. Many become spiritual masters for 10 minutes and then immediately revert to being slaves to appearances. They spend the morning affirming abundance and the rest of the day complaining about bills. They close their eyes to visualize and open them to doubt. This division destroys creative power because the quantum field doesn't respond to what you do in isolation, but to what you are all the time. The universe is not impressed by occasional spiritual practices. It bends to coherence. Most believe that manifesting is a ritual, something done at a specific moment. But what truly creates is not the instant of the technique. It is the constancy of the vibration. The universe does not react to what you do in 1 minute of faith, but to what you sustain during hours of distraction. It is in the small daily reactions, in the way you speak, think, and feel in the face of life, that your energetic field is shaped. And this is what creates your reality. When you live in fear, even while praying for faith, fear is what manifests. When you live in complaint, even while giving thanks on paper, complaint is what vibrates loudest. Separating the spiritual from the everyday is like turning on a light and immediately turning it off again. The field needs continuity, a stable vibration, not momentary impulses. Therefore, manifestation is not an exercise, it is a style of consciousness. It is a way of being in the world. What is asked for is not perfection, but coherence. Feeling prosperous while living a simple routine, acting with love even when the world incites hatred, remaining calm even when everything seems to be falling apart. This is not pretending. It is sustaining a truth deeper than appearances. When you begin to live in an integrated way, the spiritual and the material cease to be opposites. The act of cooking, walking, paying a bill, or hugging someone becomes an extension of your inner vibration. You begin to perceive that every daily gesture is a prayer in motion. Manifestation is not in the sacred moment. It is in your gaze, your words, your choice to maintain your state, even when no one is watching. The secret is the continuity of being. Because while many try to manifest with effort, the true creator manifests with naturalness. They do not force reality, they allow it. They do not say, "I'm trying to believe." They live as one who already knows. And when life tries to contradict this knowing, they smile, because they understand that the physical world is merely the delayed reflection of an old state, which is already being replaced by the new. When the spiritual blends with the everyday, there are no more boundaries. You do not practice manifestation. You become manifestation itself. Every word aligns with your consciousness. Every action vibrates in tune with the state you have chosen to sustain. And at this point, life ceases to be an attempt to create and becomes a natural expression of who you are. Reality is no longer something to be molded, but something that reveals itself according to your degree of inner coherence. The fourth error is trying to control the how. The human mind, accustomed to effort, wants to dictate the path creation should follow. It believes that control is security, and that if it doesn't know the next step, nothing will happen. This is why so many get lost in the process. They begin to imagine the outcome. But soon after, try to plan every detail of how it will come, where it will come from, who will bring it, and when. And at that moment, the flow is interrupted. Because control is born from fear, and fear is the negation of faith. The quantum field doesn't need instructions, it needs direction. You are not responsible for the path, only for the final state. It's like programming a destination into a GPS. You define where you want to arrive, but you don't worry about every turn or signal. Higher consciousness knows the route better than the limited mind. When you cling to the how, you interfere with the universe's work and block the synchronicities that were forming in your favor. It's like trying to teach a river to flow. Those who try to control everything end up creating resistance. The more force they apply, the more the field returns effort, because energy doesn't flow where there is tension. The act of controlling is a silent declaration of distrust. I don't believe this will happen naturally. And it is precisely this vibration that delays the process. The universe responds to surrender, not to vigilance. It moves through trust, not worry. True manifestation is an act of mature faith. It is the inner state of one who already knows that the outcome is inevitable and therefore does not need to interfere. When you define the realized end and feel it as true, creation reorganizes itself in an invisible and precise manner. People appear, coincidences intertwine, opportunities present themselves, all without you having to force anything. Divine intelligence takes care of the means, because the vibration has already announced the destination. Understanding this is liberating. It means you no longer need to expend energy trying to guess what comes next. The quantum field is self-adjusting. It operates based on vibrational coherence, not mental control. When you try to force the path, you act like someone who doubts the very law. But when you surrender, you prove that you have understood the principle. The invisible always knows the best route. Letting go of control is not giving up. It is trusting. It is the supreme act of conscious surrender, when the Creator recognizes that they do not need to push the universe, because it is already in motion. You don't need to see the path to know you are being guided. You only need to remain in the final state with conviction. And when that state becomes stable, the how reveals itself in the most natural, often unexpected, but always perfect way. The secret is simple. Stop trying to push the river and learn to float. When you let go, the flow takes you exactly where you need to go. And ironically, it is in this moment of total surrender that true power awakens, because the Creator does not control the universe. They command it through being, and one who is does not need to interfere. The universe simply obeys. Quantum manifestation has never failed. It is the human being who fails by trying to control it with the mind instead of experiencing it with consciousness. Because deep down, everything we call manifesting is just the art of remembering. Remembering that the universe is not an external agent, but the exact reflection of what you are inside. Everything that happens to you is merely the natural response of the state you have chosen to inhabit. If you live in fear, the world becomes hostile. If you live in certainty, the world becomes docile. If you live in lack, life echoes scarcity. But if you live in fullness, even silence conspires in your favor. People seek formulas, techniques, secrets, but the true secret is being. What you vibrate when no one is watching is what truly creates. Manifestation doesn't depend on how many times you visualize something, but on how deeply you feel yourself as that thing. What happens outside is merely the delayed photograph of what has already been accepted within. This is why haste and doubt destroy, because they keep alive the belief that it is not yet. And as long as that idea exists, the universe continues to obey. It is not yet. There comes a point where faith ceases to be an effort and becomes a natural state. At this point, the Creator awakens. They do not beg, do not repeat, do not observe signs. They decide. And the inner decision is the most powerful decree that exists. Because when the I Am is pronounced with conviction, creation has no choice but to align. The universe does not resist the certainty of one who already knows. So, stop asking for external changes. Stop waiting for confirmations. Close your eyes, breathe, and return to the center, where everything already is. Declare in silence, I am the state I choose to sustain, and remain there, firm, even when the world seems to contradict it. Because the contradiction is merely the old dying. Remain until the invisible becomes inevitable. This is true manifestation, not a game of techniques, but the awakening of the consciousness that creates. When you understand this, fear disappears, time dissolves, and the impossible ceases to exist. The universe, after all, is not something to conquer. It is something to reflect, and it will always reflect with perfection what you have finally allowed yourself to be.